Welcome back to the Mustang recap. SMSU Valorant Gold played last week. SMSU on Lotus picked Cypher, Breach, Chamber, Raze, Omen.
And the HCC Hawks picking Jet, Gecko, Omen, Cypher, and Chamber.
Yeah, how do you feel about those team comps? Both pretty defensive.
Double Sentinel,
Yep.
which is really the first thing I noticed. Double Sentinel, Hudson on his signature Cypher.
Yep.
And yeah, Hudson subbing in, by the way, for
Carlos was unable to make it last week.
For OJ Chandy, yeah. Yeah.
What also no Raze coming out on the HCC Hawks. That's pretty interesting. Raze kind of a staple for Lotus. Feels hard to control A without it, but HCC Hawks still were able to control the game quite a bit. I believe the end score for that game was 13-2. SMSU really unable to find traction on Lotus. That Chamber really shut SMSU out. We saw both Chambers top fragging.
And then Skibbity Dreadhead, the Jet. Sorry, that's a very funny name. Skibbity Dreadhead, the Jet, third fragging.
Yeah,
from the
really.
top.
Woken, the only one really finding kills on SMSU. 14 kills coming out from Woken. 7 on Fear, the next closest. And SMSU just really struggled on Lotus. But they went ahead and moved to Ascent, where they are able to find a little bit more traction. We see SMSU on Sova, Clove, Jet, Breach, and Cypher.
And HCC on Sova, Cypher, Omen, KO, and Jet.
Yeah, the KO, pretty interesting. Really good against that Cypher. You know, you can stop the trips if you're able to get the knife on him. Can be kind of difficult, though. Cyphers typically sit a little bit further backside. Can be hard to find where they're sitting on site.
And Sova on both teams is pretty standard for Ascent. We saw a lot of, I know we saw some Odins. I think we have a clip coming up with an Odin. 2 Odins actually kind of firing at each other through the walls and missing. We saw a lot of Odins, a lot of Sovas on Ascent, which is pretty typical. High penetration weapons are really good on that map. All the walls are paper thin.
Yeah,
so.
Ascent, definitely an Odin map. And SMSU, crushing win on Ascent, 13-6. SMSU, a lot of confidence after leaving Ascent, but that is where the story kind of ends for SMSU as we go on to Haven. SMSU aren't able to close the series. They lose 13-4 on Haven. They ran the Cypher, Breach, and Neon, Brim, Sova.
And then HCC was on Reyna, Sova, Omen, Cypher, and Jet.
Yeah, Haven can be a kind of difficult map. It tends to be a little bit more snowbally. Depends if you're having success when you're hitting sites in those, 3 versus 2 scenarios, 3 versus 1 scenarios. Can be very difficult to hold with the 3 sites.
Yeah, something that's interesting about SMSU's comp is is that they're running 2 initiators with Sova as an information-based initiator and Breach as a get kills like CC initiator with the Neon, which can lead to a lot of potent setups. And unfortunately, that didn't pan out for SMSU. But another interesting thing we saw was Cypher picked on both sides every single map of this series.
Yeah, Cypher very quickly becoming the #1 Sentinel character. I think KO has kind of been left in the dust, or KJ's been left in the dust a little bit. It's just those rearming trips are so strong. It's so hard to hit the Cypher site, and it just secures a lot more rounds just because you know that they're not coming C, or if they do, they're going to have a really hard time getting on that site.
And this is after Cypher got nerfed like a couple months ago.
Yeah.
And he's still just so absolutely dominant. Just really disgusting character. I really hate playing against Cypher.
Yeah, it can be very difficult, especially if you're unsure where they're setting their trips up. You can use the Sova shock darts to destroy them, but it is hard to find them, and you're using a big part of your other utility just to counter one agent rather than using it aggressively. Can make things really difficult. And SMSU lose the series 2-1. I think we're going to jump right into a clip here that we're going to comment over shortly. And here we go. Sova looking to retake, but SMSU Breach finds a flash here.
Here we have Sova and an Odin. It's like man and dog.
Yeah, and watch the way Bucky really wins this round. This is a Bucky highlight. He finds the first kill. Sova tries pushing up, looking for some pen here. Bucky finds a ton of damage.
Odin versus Odin. Who will win?
And there's Bucky finding another kill on
And
Dress,
Bucky lasers him.
Yeah, this was Bucky.
That's
popped off this series. I believe he dropped 25 kills on this map alone. Really found some success. And we're going to jump into the rest of the SMSU clips here, and we'll be back with Overwatch highlights right after. Pretty far.
Drop in a smoke.
They're going to tap.
One enemy
They
remaining.
get one. And they get the other. SMSU win the round. Very nice double up from SMSU. And some information given over on that location.
One enemy remaining.
One left. SMSU 2 versus 1. Omen's
Last
jumping
player
down.
standing.
And SMSU win the round. Bucky with a very nice clutch there. But unable to get the second. Two more coming. Caster trying to drop off. Tries to use the door, but remembers now that they broke it.
30 seconds left. One enemy
SMSU, they
remaining.
find one more. Now a 1 versus 3, and Caster gets them both.
Our job gets a hold of
Big pest around for SMSU, and we're going to go into a replay. Does hit one eventually. SMSU fight 2, a 3 versus 3, a 3 versus 2.
Spike down.
But Bucky
A.
gets taken out, a 2 versus 2 now.
Last player
Now
standing.
a 2 versus 1 Woken on 6 HP.
One enemy
Finds them
remaining.
both with 1 bullet.
Almost got me.
SMSU, they do find that kill. 5 versus 4 now. Very good kill for them.
Dropping smokes. Blocking sight.
Breach stun does land in the Woken, but it doesn't matter. Woken picks up 2 more. It's another.
One
It
enemy
does
remaining.
find the Opper. Woken with a big play. Looking for 1 more. Finds out she did pick up a Vandal. SMSU a 3 versus 1. Oh, but Omen finds a nice kill there. Blind puts out. Caster. Bucky gets one through the smoke. Jet trying to play the angle, and Bucky goes big again.
One enemy remaining.
SMSU taking them all out. And SMSU Bucky with 3. Yeah, and even though SMSU had some amazing clips for Valorant, they were unable to pull it through. But now we move over to Overwatch. They had 2 different series on last Friday due to a reschedule request. And it was a pretty interesting night, I would say, from Overwatch. SMSU really struggled on control over the series. They lost Lijiang Tower 1-2.
Mocha, the Echo, for Mizzo.
Mizzou, yeah.
Mizzou was absolutely destroying SMSU. Mocha was extremely dominant in every single one of these games. I believe they were a top 300 or 100 something support player. I think that's correct?
Yep.
Absolutely dominant showing from Mocha, especially on, I think it was the May and I want to say the Cassidy, but I might be wrong on that one.
Yeah, SMSU really struggled to find the counter picks. They kept getting counter swapped, and it was really difficult for SMSU to find a footing in both control. And then we moved on to Kings Row for the hybrid map, and SMSU, they got stonewalled on that first point. They weren't able to even capture it. SMSU just really not able to find the protection for their backline against the Doomfist and against the dive coming out that May, finding a lot of ice wall traps.
Yep. Yeah, but SMSU was also able to find a little bit of success with the May, with Luna doing a decent showing, also finding some ice walls. Yeah, and Darkness Luna pretty good on the May, finding some traps. Both SMSU and Mizzou were generally playing Brawl for most of this. SMSU did switch to the Winston for Kings Row point 1 in order to, it was kind of a desperate attempt to take that point on Kings Row, and I don't think it ended up succeeding, unfortunately.
Yeah, we saw SMSU really struggled trying to play Brawl into Brawl. It's something that they are consider themselves Brawl players. They play a lot of Brawl lineups, and it can just be a really big struggle if the enemy team is better at Brawl than you, because you don't have other strategies you can fall back on as much and that type of thing. Yeah, they really struggled on Kings Row, and then they moved to New Queen Street, where they also lost on push. They fell in that first series 3-0 as they kept trying different things out, but the pick pressure from that Sombra and Tracer coming out from Mizzou was massive, and SMSU, they weren't able to stay as a cohesive group enough to take that first series.
Yeah, Mizzou was playing a pretty nasty dive comp this round, and yeah, they were able to take it away from SMSU, unfortunately.
Stuff like that Lucio, that Tracer, that
Sombra.
It's so much dive, so much backline pressure. It can be really difficult to deal with. SMSU tried a couple different things. They had some success with the Ash. They had some success with the Reaper, but they weren't able to pull that push map back. So SMSU fell 3-0 in their first series. And the second series honestly started a little rough for SMSU as well. They dropped 0-2, playing a Busan control. Off the back of Carlos was having some big picks on the Widow, but they weren't able to pull that through to some control map wins. They played the Diva, the Juno, the Kiri, the Cassidy, but they just weren't able to get. It felt like they got a lot of picks, but they didn't win a lot of team fights.
Sure. Yep. And I noticed that with SMSU too. Yeah, that's something I did notice. How when I was commentating, what would happen is that they would kill somebody, like a support, and I'd be like, "Oh, dude, sweet, free, team fight win for SMSU," and then they just like lose it. Yeah. It's just really unfortunate.
I think maybe a little overcommitting, thinking, okay, we can run them over now, but they fell for traps. They fell into these positions that they could lose in a 4 versus 5 scenario. But then they continued on to King Street again. SMSU picked into this map, and even though they didn't have success with it on the first go around, they lose King Street again, Kings Row again. But it was very close. We saw both teams make it all the way to the end and make it into overtime. SMSU does end up falling 4-3 on Kings Row. Yeah, SMSU moved on to Coliseo for the push map, where they finally start to find some success. They played a lot of different setups. I think we saw the Widow come out from Carlos. We saw the Sombra come out from a little bit. And SMSU were able to keep the point pushed most of the time. They were able to get that close respawn point, which really helped them maintain pressure on the push map. And SMSU, they really rallied behind push and were able to start taking the series and, starting that comeback that SMSU end up succeeding in. And then they move over to Junkertown for Flashpoint, where SMSU, they bring out the Genji.
Apparently, back in the day, Carlos was a Genji one-trick, which is hard to believe because he doesn't bring it out too much. But when he does, it tends to be kind of deadly. He gets some pretty good Dragon Blades off, which is always fun to watch.
For sure. But SMSU, they decided to play the Mauga, to just play it into the Mauga, because SMSU were really struggling against this tank. So Drew just said, you know what, I'll play him too, and we'll just stand there and trade bullets with each other and not have to think so much. As SMSU, they capture, I believe, the first 2 points on Flashpoint, and then it started to look a little bit rough. They give up 2 points back, and then they are able to take the 5th point in very nice fashion. I think we saw a massive Venture ult coming out from Carlos. We saw a big Reaper ult come out from Daniel, and we saw a lot of very clutch plays from Juno. We saw Juno become a really important pick in this series. Both teams played a lot of Juno.
Yep.
And I think SMSU really figured out that Juno ult is crazy, and you can win team fights with just that ult. And then we moved over for the 5th map of the series, the Shambali Monastery, where SMSU, this was kind of their home pick last year. They played a lot of Monastery, and they were very happy to end up back at it here.
Awesome. Yeah, SMSU, they actually picked the Torbjorn, not SMSU, CCA ended up picking the Torbjorn, which unfortunately didn't find much success, but I was happy to see a Torbjorn picked. I thought that was really funny.
It is fun to see different picks come out here. especially.
Actually, yeah, very varied, relatively varied series of games from SMSU on this doubleheader. A lot of the time we end up seeing Mystic stick to the Ramatra, like more often than he did this series. I'm very happy because sometimes I cast Overwatch and I get bored of seeing the Ramatra because he's cool, but not when you've seen him like 10 games in a row.
Yeah, for sure. And SMSU, they were on the attack side first on Monastery, and they pushed all the way to the end. I believe they had an extra minute 40 seconds left on their timer, so they were feeling very confident. You know, even if their opponents pushed all the way to the end, they just had to delay a little bit so that they would have the time advantage in overtime. And honestly, SMSU were so close to stopping them from capping so many points, but we saw Co-College. They were able to bring it all the way to the last point where SMSU, they stopped them after just 2, so they didn't have to play the overtime. SMSU, I believe they had a massive Reaper ult. They were able to avoid the ults coming out from Koa Academy, and then we saw Reaper able to find a big play here, and Venture really popping off at the end of the half. SMSU take the second series 3-2, and they move to 1-1 on the season with the win. Now we'll move into some clips from that Overwatch game, and then I believe we'll have an interview with Drew.
Activated! Lucio ult. Lucio ult. Oh. Get in there! Devoted! Bob, do something! Oh my god. I reckon Luna might teleport in and look for its ultimate ability. Oh, okay, but SMSU somehow clean. Oh, they had
both players zoned in on each other, trying to take each other out of the game. As SMSU pushes on the site to find a kill on Akiri. Here comes a lot of damage. SMSU, they find 2, they find 3. Rem trying to take out one of SMSU, but they find 4.
Play of the game.
Luna with the play of the game on Cassidy. Was a very nice ult there, and we
finding silver in the world. Moira ult comes out. SMSU's gonna push those.
There's the male again. SMSU does find the disengage from it, but they find Manga and they're pushing heavy. They're getting kills.
3.
That's play of the game right there. Looking for more AoE damage coming out onto their opponents here. Orisa pushing pretty deep here. Now getting hit by May. They get walled off a little bit. And Mystic taken low.
Oh, dang, it's 2 kills though. Both DPS are dead. It's Hanu.
Oh, it's Hanu, baby.
Absolutely. How is it not urgent?
I don't know. I don't understand how it's not the Cassie. No, this is the Maga ult. This is them being trapped in there with him. That was a pretty cool ult too. Really easy. It's like everybody's being hit by both versions of Mercy's beam.
God. SMSU's DPS has the high ground here with Kitsune. Sigma going in.
Anti is huge.
Grandpa's day out.
Grandpa's day out.
Grandpa's day out. He left the retirement home. Jumping straight in there.
And he's getting melted. He gets taken out right away.
Venture's able to find a pick here. Jumps up.
And he finds Reaper too. Oh, 3 kills.
Still no let.
What a character that is. SMSU getting trapped in.
2 cages. I think SMSU cages was placed down first. I
don't know who placed it first, but I know who.
Too much damage. Pseudo ult comes out. Venture ult's on the ground. Finds 1 kill. Unable to.
Whoa,
Reaper?
but Reaper, he's popping off.
Who needs a tank? Get him.
Reaper's the tank for it. But Luna. Yeah. Okay. Luna gets robbed a little bit though because he also had like a 1 versus 1.
Yeah, I don't think those early rounds was all Luna. I think.
But I think this one's deserved after getting robbed 2 maps in a row
Very
of a
huge
play of the game.
flank though.
One night and trash with that Alarial. Probably the first one. Oh yeah, this one.
Everyone getting some highlights here. I don't think anyone who's playing right now didn't get to play the game this time.
All right, welcome back to the SMSU podcast here, the Mustang recap. We're here with Drew Middendorf today. Drew, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi guys, I'm Drew. I've been in the esports program for the last 4 years. Been in CS since I was a freshman. Unfortunately, I'm not in CSGO again this year, but I've been in Overwatch since I was a sophomore here, and have been in Overwatch ever since. Yeah, I just really love the esports program. Can't wait to continue the season.
Awesome. Drew, when did you start playing video games competitively? Did you grow up playing a lot of video games, or is it something that you picked up when you started going to high school and college?
So yeah, I've been playing video games since I was probably like 4 or 5 years old. I remember the first video game I ever played was Lara Croft on the PS1. And I was so bad, and I couldn't even get past the first level, but it never deterred me. Like, I went from that to playing racing games with my mom and my family, and then after that, like when I hit like 3rd or 4th grade, I think, is when I started playing Call of Duty for the first time, and since then it's just been first-person shooters, and those have been like my main games. But yeah, I've been only really competitive since I got to college, but before that it was just with friends playing Rainbow Six Siege, Apex, games like that.
For sure. And what are you majoring here at SMSU? What do you see yourself doing after graduation?
So I'm actually a social work major here at SMSU. I started psych, and then it wasn't really a good fit for me, but I'm happy with social work, and after I graduate, I want to work with individuals who are aging out of the system, foster care system specifically, but I would also like to come back here and help possibly assistant coach and part-time coach as an Overwatch person. I think that would be really awesome and really enjoyable.
Sweet. So Overwatch played their first 2 games of the season this last week, falling 0-3 in the first series and falling down 0-2 in the second series, before making a comeback and ending the series winning 3-2. Walk us through how the team was feeling by the end of the day Friday.
We were all really hype, actually. It was really good experience. Looking back, we can see where we went wrong during the first game, and we can see how they played, because one of their DPS players was like top 300 in the US on support, and just seeing how they position and how they play with their team kind of allows us to see how we can better implement it to our strategies and how we play. I think the first team just genuinely played Brawl a little bit better than we did and just have more experience overall. But the second game was really awesome. It was really, really awesome to get a win under our belt, be 1-1 on the season, like just get the ball rolling, get the ball moving, see how we play as a team now that we have some fresh faces. So it was really, really good to see.
Yeah, for sure. And we saw SMSU go through player swaps during that last series, changing the support players out between Series 1 and Series 2. Do you feel like the ability to have 2 supports who are both strong players that can both compete at a high level gives SMSU an advantage with being allowed to substitute players? Or do you feel like both players have similar strengths and weaknesses? How do you feel about the 2?
I think that they all play they all play support, but they all play support differently, for sure. Like, I would say, like, Trash, for example, he's very across the board, like really quick reaction time, really good mechanical skill, and sometimes just plays a little bit like fast and loose. But I think that's okay as long as we have one of the other 2 supports playing with him, because Chaperone's a lot more like really good, hunker down, like stick with the team, play, especially with Tank because he likes playing Brig. So a lot of times he'll end up brawling with me and being on the front line, and then we have him able to proc his Inspire to make everybody around us heal, and if we play Brawl, it works really, really well. And then we have Moody, who plays pretty much every support on the roster and is a lot more passive and plays like back far away from the team and she supports us from the back line and doesn't get too engaged unless somebody's about to die. Then she kind of uses herself as sacrificial lamb to make sure we win the fight. Not afraid to use herself to win.
And then what is Brawl? Like, what does that mean in the context of Overwatch?
So Brawl, there's 3 types of like things that people run in Overwatch. There's dive, there's brawl, and then there's poke. So dive is you dive on them. It's very brain focused. Like, you have to be very specific about when you're diving and when you're engaging and disengaging and whatnot, and make sure you have your abilities up. And it's very like quick and fast, and you really got to use your brain a lot. Poke is like you sit back, you just shoot at them. As soon as they're low, you use an ability to get a kill, and then you move off that. Brawl is you just basically sit in a giant death ball and walk at them and hope that one of them is they're trying to fight like a 5v1, or you're just better than them mechanically, and you can basically strong arm them and strong arm your way to victory. So brawl is very like just pretty deathball-y, I guess. I don't know really how to explain it. It's just a lot of you sit together really tight, don't really have anybody too far or too close. Everybody's just like in a circle, and you just walk.
Nice.
So a little bit more walking at them rather than diving in to get those kills.
So out of the three, what's your favorite to play?
That's really tough. I would say brawl, just because I play Ramatra, and Ramatra's typically a brawl tank, and it's arguably the easiest. Like, I realize when I play tanks, a lot of times, if I'm playing like Sigma or Winston or Diva, a lot of times I'll level up like one or two things on them, and then when I play Ramatra, it's just level up green across the board, like everything that I could do in the match I did, and he's my highest level by far. So yeah, definitely brawl.
Nice.
For sure. And we saw last year Overwatch had a lot of success in the second semester of competition. Do you feel like the team is in a good spot for a repeat, to do better than last year? Or do you think there's a little bit more maybe of a rebuild year, looking at improving and looking at maybe the second semester of competition?
I think that we definitely have a shot of doing just as good last year, if not better than we did, or this year than we did previous, because we have a lot of new faces, but we have a lot of talent too, you know? We have a lot of people who are willing to flex wherever they need to. Like last year, it felt like the roles that people played, we kind of had to stick to that because people weren't super comfortable flexing a whole lot. Like we had Brandon and Alistair swap towards the end of the second semester, but this year it's like everybody's kind of willing to play everything. We have a lot of support players who are really willing to play support, and it feels nice to have that flexibility. And also, like Daniel, for example, he was really, really good on console, and I know console and PC are different games. Basically, like they're just played completely differently, but he's still very, very good and has a lot of intelligence when it comes to when to take fights, and is a really great listener. He's good at I've been telling everybody like what the meta is and whatnot, and he's very good at playing those characters and getting good at those characters really quickly, like a lot quicker than I ever imagined anybody would.
Awesome. Drew, are you excited by any of the changes that have been happening around Overwatch? I know there's a lot going on. Like it was like 2 months ago or something, they made the head hitboxes like gigantic. I know that was the last thing I remember. Like for big changes, there was a bunch of other stuff like all the characters' health got tweaked and stuff. And new maps too. I can't even think. Spencer, do you know what isn't there a new map coming out?
There is a few new maps. There's a new push map, Runesape, I believe it's how it's called. Yep. And then there's new game mode completely. We've got Clash now. Which, how do you feel about the new game mode? Do you like some of those new maps?
And then could you actually explain what Clash is to me, because I have no idea.
Okay, yeah. So that's a pretty loaded question. So first off, I really like the changes that are happening in Overwatch. They're keeping it fresh. Like I know no matter what changes happen, somebody's going to be upset and somebody's going to be unhappy with what they did to their character because they hate me, so they're changing my character. But I think keeping the game fresh and keeping it new is better than for longevity than just trying to appease everybody, because you'll never make everybody happy. Unfortunately, that's just the way the game works. I really like where it is right now just because tanks are strong. Like they giga buff tanks like crazy, and it just makes them like super, super impervious, and it feels like you're a kaiju walking down and nobody can kill you unless they get really lucky and use an ult, right? So it feels good for me. It feels like I can actually make plays again rather than just sitting in the back and just poking or standing there and blocking his brawl and just not doing anything, you know, and making my DPS and supports do everything for me. But yeah, I like where it is right now. And to answer your questions about the maps, I think Clash is very divisive. I think a lot of people don't like it, specifically tank players, but I think if you find your one character that you can play marginally well on any of the new maps, it works pretty well most of the times. Like for me, I get a lot of value on ball on Rinasapi just because, yes, there's long sight lines, but that means they're obviously playing poke a lot more, which means I can dive the backline pretty easily once my team engages, and it ends up panning out pretty well. And Clash is another beast. It's kind of like domination in a way, except you start trying to take over C, and then if you take over C, you go to B. If they take over C, they go to D, and you're trying to get to their spawn basically, and then take over 5 points. And they don't have to be consecutively, but you take over like 1 point, second point, they take over a point, you take over it again, and it's a lot of back and forth, like rubber banding across the map. I don't think it's very intuitive sometimes because it's almost seems like you should win the first 2, lose 3, and then win the last 3 because then you aren't at their spawn, and it just makes it seem like kind of
so
messy.
Does that kind of seem like
5 points in a straight line?
Okay, I'm visualizing it.
So there's
there's
5 points in a straight line. The first point that they capture is the very middle one. And then if you win the very middle one, you move 1 point closer to your opponent's side.
That makes sense.
And then there's the first one to capture 5 points.
That's
if
kind
you're
of like
on the last point of your opponent's, you just have to capture it 3 times in a row.
That's kind of like push.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, it is, but
more
different.
checkpoint focused.
Yeah, okay.
But it is interesting. I personally think it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I like it a lot. I know
Okay.
it's really divisive across a lot of tank players. Like, a lot of tank players really don't enjoy it, but I enjoy just messing around, playing ball, playing dive, just kind of like going to their backline, running away, going to their backline, running away, just being pesky. Because you don't really get to do that as tank a whole lot, just being pesky and being annoying. It's a nice change of pace. I think it's healthy for the game, and it kind of, in a way, feels like it was a good replacement for like losing 2 CP in Overwatch 1. Like, the new game modes they're coming out with are like trying to replace what was also very, very divisive. So I don't know. I like that they're trying new things and trying to keep the game fresh.
Yeah, I'm excited to see you play ball more. He's definitely like the most entertaining character to watch, and it's not even close.
Yeah.
Just spin around in a circle all game. It's
yeah,
awesome.
seriously. You just
it's sweet.
find a focal point and just spin around and around and around and just knock everybody up. And you build alt charge so fast. Like, along with the tank changes that I mentioned previously, they made so tanks just gain alt charge way quicker, specifically ball, especially if you get like a good slam where you hit like 5 of them. Your alt charge jumps up like 15 to 20%, and you're like, oh, there, landmines.
No.
Nice.
For sure. And with you being a senior this year, is there anything you want the team to accomplish specifically while you're still on the roster? Are you excited to be in a position of helping the future Overwatch players improve so that the team still can continue to have success when you're gone?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like, I'm very excited to be a senior. I'd really love to go to nationals again like we did last year. I think that would be amazing. Whether that's realistic or not, I don't know. It depends on how we end up playing as a team and how we grow as a team, you know? We have a lot of fresh faces who are really determined to do well, and that excites me because it's nice to see people who are really excited and ready to play. But yeah, I'm so stoked to be able to have a chance to help train up some of the other people. Like, we have Hyena, Owen. Me and him have gotten really close, and when we're in practice, I'll watch him play tank and I'll give him pointers, and as soon as I give him the pointers, he implements them immediately. Like, he's not like, oh, well, I think I did this right, or I think I did this right. He's very much like, okay, I'll do that, and then I see him implement it, and seeing the way he's grown just in the past couple weeks is immaculate. Him, Darkness, like, even Moody, like, they all just are growing like exponentially with the team, and I think it's really cool to see like the difference of them playing comp versus playing with a dedicated esports team. It's wild.
So on the topic of those freshmen, so Daniel's a DPS player, Owen's a tank player, and Rayanne is a support player. How has SMSU been helping these new players become acclimated with the team environment, and how is the team encouraging them to get better in practices and games?
That's a really good question. I would say just specifically, like, Carlos has been watching Daniel play, and Daniel's already really good. He's got great aim. He uses he has pretty good game sense. So I think Carlos is doing a pretty good job of watching him. Rayanne, I have a lot of experience playing with her personally, so we play really well off of each other. So I think her being able to sub in and play for whoever works pretty well in that aspect. And then obviously Owen, like I said, I give him pointers and he implements them immediately and does such a good job of following through and making sure that he's doing it to the best of his ability. I think once I graduate, he's going to be an amazing replacement for me, and I think the Overwatch team could go really far and continue to climb ranks and play even harder opponents.
For sure. And is there anyone or anything you want to shout out as we wrap this interview up? Anything you want to mention for the SMSU esports fans at home?
Just make sure to queue into our Overwatch games. They're a blast. Hopefully, with more support, we can get the morale to keep winning and grinding, and hopefully go to nationals again. It would be awesome to see that. So, any support you guys are willing to offer would be awesome. And but I think that's all I got. So thank you guys.
Yeah. Thank you. And keep in mind, Overwatch games Friday nights, typically 6 to 7 p.m. start time. We'll keep you posted about those on Twitter. And thank you again, Drew, for coming by for this interview today. Thank you for watching the podcast, those of you at home. And we will see you next time for the Mustang Recap.